Last weekend, Diamond and Silk took to the big stage in Green Bay, Wisconsin, but this time it wasn't for their chit-chat tour. No, the ladies were on hand to rally Trump supporters that showed up to watch the president speak that evening. Here are some of the highlights.
To the media. How low can you go? CNN, NBC, MSNBC, HIJKLMNOP, all you do is LIE. You lie, lie, lie. Please read my lips. There was no Russia collusion or no obstruction of justice. Read my lips. We don't speak Russian. No. We ain't never been influenced by Russia. No. And President Trump won this election in 2016 by the people and with the people, not with Russia. And to these left-leaning socialist, desperate Democrats in Congress. Who read the 400 pages of the Mueller report, need to also read the pages of the Constitution.
That's right. That's right.
And there is nowhere in that Constitution where it permits you to weaponize your position by abusing your power to harass, slander a sitting president. But here's the deal.
What's the deal?
We don't need you to investigate, interrogate, speculate, fabricate, or instigate. We don't need you to do that.
No, we don't.
Here is what we need Congress to do. We need you to legislate and cooperate with the President of the United States. Any congressman that is anti-Semitic and anti-America and anti-American, you can pack your knapsack and you can skip out of this country. You can go. We got 4 X's. You can either go north, south, east, or west. I want you all to know that we are the United States, not the divided states. And somebody need to go tell that old Bernie Sanders, who looked like he's still stuck in the Revolutionary War, that his time is up.
It's up.
He's so bent on pushing these socialistic ideas. Let me tell you something. Illegal aliens aren't flocking to the borders of Venezuela. They're flocking to the borders of America to obtain the American dream because President Trump had this economy hot and booming. That's why they're coming here.
That's why they're coming here.
And I need for you all to understand something. Sanctuary cities are for birds.
That's right.
Catch and release are for fish. We are about to win another election. So 2020, here we come.
Here we come.
So either the left can get on the Trump train or get the hell out of the way. All aboard! All aboard! All aboard!
Catch and release are for fish. Wow. I discovered those ladies, and now look at them. They're bigger than I am. Starting to get a little jealous, I think.
President Trump reaching a bipartisan agreement with Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi with a $2 trillion infrastructure deal. But as lawmakers discuss how they would pay for it, experts say it will cost potentially a lot more to fix all of the infrastructure challenges America faces. Joining us now to discuss, Casey Dinges, a senior managing director at the American Society of Civil Engineers. Thanks for being here today.
Good to be here, thanks.
When you heard that $2 trillion deal was made, did you just sigh in relief and feel like our troubles are over?
Well, it's the beginning of the conversation, as they say. It's a very good starting point. It's very encouraging to have presidential leadership on the infrastructure issue. And certainly when you have a moment where the Senate minority leader, the House Speaker, and the President are on the same page, that's a good one. And $2 trillion is really the outer contours of this issue, and that lines up nicely with the failure to act economic studies that AAC has done over the years. So they're starting with a good number.
All
Right. Well, a recent statement actually from your colleagues, the American Society of Civil Engineers, says our nation's infrastructure hasn't seen sufficient investment in over a generation. ASCE is very glad to see the productive results of the meeting because without this investment, American families will continue to pay the price of inaction through a hidden tax. $9 a day, $3,400 a year, leaky water pipes, potholes, and lost productivity at work due to congestion is costing us. I mean, is that where we are, that when we don't act, we're actually hurting ourselves?
Right. We are already paying the tax. So when we think about how are we going to pay for, let's say, a big surface transportation initiative, and that's about half of that $2 trillion gap looking, and that's a 10-year number too, so let's keep it in perspective. About half of that is a transportation deficit number. So clearly we're going to have to look at things like the gas tax or indexing the gas tax, and if not that, something else that is robust, unless you want to continue deficit spending. Yeah. And we don't think that's a responsible approach.
Taking a look at a little more detail coming out too, there's a report card. You guys put out a report card taking a look. Infrastructure grades by sector. And here's the list. Overall, a lot of D's on this list. Yeah. Perhaps one of the surprises for me when I was looking at the list, at least what I have here on the paper, is rail's got a B. And then also the overall report card over time, which is what they're actually showing here, also showing, you know, all those D's. Where's the toughest thing? What's the job that'll be the most difficult to actually achieve?
You know, it depends where you are, what your biggest issue is. Transportation is something that most people feel every day, so you hear a lot about it and politicians talk about it a lot. But if you're in Davenport, Iowa today, you're probably thinking about the condition of your levees and flood control. Other parts of the country, dams, we have over 50,000 dam structures in this country. Bridges, you know, the 50,000 bridges are either structurally deficient, functionally obsolete, so they need greater attention. Doesn't mean they're about to collapse. So it really depends. We really have to go across the board. That's why the report card had 16 categories. Let me point out the states have been stepping up in terms of the investment. It's really the federal government that needs to catch up. It's been 25 years since the gas tax was touched in Washington. A number of the states, half the states in the last 5 years.
But is that the solution, the gas tax?
That'll be part of it. There's got to be some funding mechanism, but you know, there's so many sectors of infrastructure. Water, you know, the water sector, we lose a water main every 2.5 minutes in the United States. So that's 250,000 times a year a water main breaks. So different sectors.
Some older cities across the nation are well familiar with that sort of problem.
Right. I mean, there's still wooden pipes under some northeast cities in the United States. So it depends on which sector, what the funding mechanisms will be, but you'll see an increased use of user fees going forward. The states have done that. Red states and blue states have raised their gas taxes in the last 5 years.
Right, we shall see. That's a really hot topic, too. We could do a whole segment on the gas tax. Casey Dinges, thanks for joining us, giving us a look into what exactly the many projects are that potentially could be worked on ahead. We appreciate it.
Good to be here. Thanks.
We are lucky to have South Carolina-based radio host Josh Kimbrough with us. Couldn't think of a better guy to talk about South Carolina. Good to see you, sir, as always. You saw that poll that Jackie put up, and the Democrats are certainly taking a lot of heart in that. O'Rourke, Biden, Sanders, Harris, and Buttigieg all beat President Trump head-to-head right now. Which one of those scares you the most?
Honestly, none of them scare me right now, Leland, and it's good to be with you today, too, to talk about national and South Carolina politics. Look, back in 2012, the 538 blog, Nate Silver, had a headline talking about how challengers in presidential races typically get a bump, that challengers typically poll higher than the president early on. Because, frankly, presidents have to deal with reality. They're scrutinized every day. The actions they take every day are under the microscope. And challengers just get to say, here's what I would do if I'm elected, and they get to put rose-colored glasses on it. So this early on, those polls don't scare me, honestly. I mean, right now it's a horse race on the Democratic side, 21 people.
Historically, you make a good point. Historically, it has been very, very difficult for challengers, especially when the economy is good. You think about the time the challengers have been successful. You go back to H.W. Bush. You go back to Ronald Reagan. Reagan winning, Bush losing. The question, though, is what changes between now and next November? It's a long time that makes your assumptions not work.
Well, right now, the economy is growing again at 3.2% GDP growth. That's the lowest unemployment rate since the summer of the moon landing in 1969. These are incredibly positive things. You just said it. The economy is what people typically vote on. And while the president may be around 45% approval, when you ask the question more specifically, do you approve of President Trump's handling of the economy, it's about 60%. What's going to change, Leland, is we're going to get a nominee on the Democratic side. When that nominee is selected, that nominee is chosen, all the national attention will focus on the platform and the policies of that candidate versus the president. And I think then people are going to say, okay, the economy is 3%, unemployment's the lowest since 1969. Do we really want to change horses right now?
As we think about who that nominee might be, if you look at the very top, you've got Biden in some of the polls. This is somebody who's been out of practice for 4 years. It certainly showed in his first couple of interviews. He's heading to South Carolina. He polls well among African Americans. What are the issues in South Carolina, you think, that will resonate the most with Democratic primary voters? What are you hearing?
Well, Leland, what's happening in our state right now will certainly color the national conversation, too, and that is education. Education has been a huge issue in South Carolina. We're debating that right now, an overhaul of the state's education system. Primary voters in both primaries, in Republican and Democrat primaries for state offices, the number one issue is education. I know that's going to be a question for Democratic primary voters. But more importantly, I think in South Carolina with Democratic primary voters, they want to see someone who's going to continue the legacy of Barack Obama. Now, what Joe Biden's going to have to do is say, look, I was with Obama the entire time. I'm his guy. He was my guy. Y'all should vote for me. And whether that works, I don't know. The Democratic primaries move so far to the left. You know, typically,
I want to get this one thought in. There's a lot of people who obviously say that Biden is the rightful heir to Barack Obama's legacy. There are other people who are saying the next Barack Obama is Beto O'Rourke out of Texas. And this is how one Daily Beast columnist wrote this up. According to my unscientific poll asking every woman I see, Beto reminds them of the worst boyfriend they ever had. Self-involved, convinced of his own charm, chronically late if he shows up at all, worth a meal or two, but definitely not marriage material. Every thought he has is transcendent, worthy of being narrated, videotaped, and blogged. He is always out finding himself. At age 46, the man asking to run the country is currently lost. Does Beto's perhaps rhyme but not necessarily repeat Barack Obama's message work in South Carolina?
No, first off, Beto O'Rourke I don't think has nearly the appeal, particularly with women voters, that Barack Obama did. Barack Obama carried the majority of women voters in the Republican or the Democratic primary. Beto O'Rourke right now, 58% of Democratic primary voters across the country are women, and they think the guy's crazy. Frankly, Leland, I'm praying for a Beto O'Rourke nomination. I'm almost willing to donate to him because I think we could kick back, enjoy the summer, and assume that there's going to be a second term of Donald Trump. He is fit for a straitjacket, and I don't think Democrats will nominate Beto O'Rourke.
I have your email, Josh. I might just add you to the Beto fundraising list with that comment. Good to see you, my friend. Appreciate the thoughts.
Thank you, sir. It was fun.
All right. If Team Beto is looking, send Josh an email.